meant to be a 12. Well, only one thing for it. Do the same thing we did to all the side cover bolts. Paint stripper. Well, it won't be the last bit of paint stripper you see. Hello Internet, my name's Rich, this is me, my bike and I. In the last video I showed you me taking apart the very top end of the Honda VF750F engine, the cam, sprockets and chain tensioners. In this video I'm going to show you what I did to go about removing the heads, including making a puller to remove those infernal water pipes, which is over there. All done. Let's get to it. Anyway, that paint stripper seemed to do its job, so we shall just clean these up before I get a socket on them and undo them. So it's to each side of the front and rear head. That's not all the bolts holding the head down, of course you need a little bit more uniformity. You've got these four in the middle which hold down the cam chain guide, you know, the rail over the top. They drop down into the case, and you've got these two here. Now the one, so that one on the end is quite short, that holds the cam cap down. The one on the inner end is very long, that goes down into the case. And of these two holes, the one on the very right holds down the oil rail, and the one in the middle is just an oil channel. So so you've got all those internals that we've already removed anyway. Realistically, I don't know what the time scale would be for removing the external bolts once you've taken the inner bolts off. I guess by virtue of the fact that we're taking all the internals out before we take the head off, you are kind of working in sort of an anti-clockwise pattern from the inside out to get all the bolts out, but I don't know if there's an issue with the amount of time between doing it in terms of any potential risk to warping the cylinder head. I don't think it would be a problem, but it really is ghastly. They look considerably better. Right, let's see if I can get these coolant pipes out now. A bit more leverage on them now. I've got a few bits off the engine. I'm not sure if they're going to come out. Trouble is, you've got a blooming O-ring in there. Oh, actually that moved. Oh, they're wiggling now. Let's try a bit of the LWD. Imagine those O-rings are probably at it anyway. Now, having left it to soak for well over 10 seconds, that will have absolutely no effect. Put it with your fingers though, you can't get any grip on the pipes. They feel like they're coming. They're definitely coming because you've got a gap opened up between the pipe and the block. Sat on there previously. Moving just slowly. Don't want to put too much force on it, but no, that's a bad idea. Just end up breaking the block. If I could just get my hand in all the way, and I wasn't just pulling with 2 fingers on each side. Right, time for a different plan. going to do the rear head first. So just these 4 big bolts. I'm going to use an impact socket for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I've got a whole range of 1/4 inch drives which have hex sockets in them. Potentially that'll snap like a twig, and of all the 3/8 I've got, the only 12mm I've got is a multi-point, which potentially could round off if it's a tough bolt to turn, and the impact bit is a hex socket and it's got a 1/2 inch drive on it, which means I can very easily just connect it straight to my breaker bar. Right, we'll go in a crisscross pattern. Well, that didn't seem very tight. The thing about hex sockets, of course, it's harder to find your mark. There's fewer ways for the socket to sit on the head. None of these are tight. So, you know, I've been asking myself, why has this engine got such low compression and such bad compression on number 2? And obviously finding that all the valves are really tight, that's one reason. Heads that aren't properly torqued down, that's another. Once they're all loose, you don't really need to worry about sort of undoing them in any particular pattern. So just go ahead and whip them all out. You know how oil can smell extremely bad sometimes? Yeah, these bolts stink. Right, apart from weight and general stickiness, there shouldn't be anything holding this on. Oh yeah, paint. What's the mating surface? Right there, look. There's a good few points where I can give it a bit of a tap from underneath though. Shouldn't be anything holding it on apart from some dowels. But you can bet your life all the paint around it is definitely producing sufficient excess force that needs to be overcome. I'm swapping hammers just to give me something a teeny bit more solid. Let's give those pry points a try. So I've checked service data, and oh, that's too thick. Yeah, and for these head bolts, they only need somewhere between 21 and 25 Newton meters of torque, so it's not at all surprising that they came undone really easily. So yeah, I'm not concerned now that they were loose in any way. Because they did crack off, they didn't just sort of come undone. These are actual pry points, by the way. Still got to be careful, but they are pry points. Not worried about marring up the aluminium in those insignificant places. No mating surfaces involved. Doesn't want to move. So that's the dedicated pry point on this side that I'm just striking and wiggling about just to see if I can get any movement, but nothing so far. It's so immovable, it's almost as if there's more bolts that need undoing. I was looking at those two, but there's definitely nothing that suggests they need to come out, and I think they are probably just plugs for the water jackets actually. So now that does seem to have separated. Albeit you could just about get a feeler gauge in there, but movement is movement. Let's go around the other side, we need to keep it even. So you can see I've not been hitting it on this side and nothing's shifted, so let's give it a try. Let's move it so we can get some swing. That's part of the trouble. That's definitely opened up, so it's starting to move. I could see it wobbling when I was smacking it. It's probably still too stuck on there to lift straight off, but yeah, I don't know, it seems to be. The only thing that's going to be holding it is dowels. Probably going to be one on each corner, I'd imagine. Wouldn't be any more than that anyway. If you want to stop it falling back down again, get yourself a very thin sort of taper of wood, like a sort of a cheese wedge of wood, and tap that in under or between the mating surfaces, because that will stop it falling back. Because that is the annoying thing when you're lifting something that's quite heavy, that gravity will put it back down again, and it's difficult to hold it up there while you're still trying to encourage it further northwards. See what it did? It came up and off and then went back down again. There you go. So you can see the head gasket came off with the cylinder head, and quite a lot of it has been left on the block actually, and you can't really tell from looking at this bit how bad it is. So we'll go over and look at the cylinder head in a minute. I can still see there's a lot of water in the jacket there, but The pistons and the bores look absolutely fine. Nice and clean, no scratching. Number 3 is good. Fair bit of carbon on the underside there in the combustion chamber, but nothing to worry about. But you can see the gasket is very well stuck to the cylinder head. Let me just turn this completely on its top side because I've not taken the rockers off yet either, so I'd be careful with that. Right, there we go. Yeah, so this is about what I expected from this cylinder head. It's upside down obviously, so this is the number 1, this is number 3. Obviously you've got exhaust this side, which you can obviously tell from the valves clearly. Yeah, and the gasket looks a little bit of a mess. So on the rear block I had compression of about 160 to 65, something like that on both. So fairly evenly matched, not an issue, should be well over 200. Of course this is a 40-year-old engine with indeterminate mileage, and it's not surprising it's low on compression if you've got a gasket that's in that much of a state. So it's going to need a bit of a teasing off, but yeah, it's in a bit of a mess. And given how, or the condition it's in is so poor, I should say, that really explains in part why I'm getting coolant in the oil, because it's crossing over the head gasket from the water jacket into the oil galleries, and vice versa, oil will be getting into the water. I didn't see any evidence of that, but the engine wasn't really running for long enough, and yeah, it clearly been recently changed when I'd acquired the bike. So, and the other matter, of course, I'm in white smoke, so coolant is getting across that gasket into the combustion chambers. Well, they don't look too bad, to be fair. Valves are nicely seated under spring pressure by the looks of it, so I can't imagine I'm losing any compression there, but the valves were very, very tight. There was practically no clearance, and that would mean that they would sort of hang open through their cycle, and potentially losing combustion there. So yeah, this is about what I expected off the rear. It's poor, but not too bad. A little bit of oil ran out there, clear all that out. A little bit of coolant ran out as well, to be expected. Anyway, let's get to the front. That's the one I really want to see. Yeah, I can't see any cracks or anything like that. That was one thing I was concerned about. Although this is the rear block still, so not the one with the major compression loss of number 2 cylinder at the front there. Just over there. Now I know these only need something like 21 to 25 Newton meters on them, and that's what it felt like they had on them. I've dispensed with a breaker bar. Something goes squish there. Does it? Which way I go now? Oh, you can smell that rancid oil coming out of those bolt holes. You know the type. When you open up a set of forks that have not been opened in 30 years, that smell. Deeply unpleasant. So this is the one I'm expecting to look worse. This is the number 2 cylinder. This is the one that had about 146 or something like that PSI. It is in that sort of range anyway. Number 4 over here was the same as the back, sort of mid 160s. So there's obviously a reason why this one's much lower. Could be rings, but I wasn't getting any blue smoke. Given the state of the gasket on the rear, very likely going to be head gasket. So difficult to see how bad it is, but we had a good look at the one on the back. If this one's similar, might not be able to see clearly exactly that it's the cause of the issue, but it looks pretty much like it is. So get a bit of a swing on it, shall we? Well, it's definitely unsealed it there, so I'd say it's moving. See if we can start to persuade that to so you can see where it's opened up now, can't you? So it's only a matter of persuading a little further and it'll lift off just as easy as the rear. Bit of luck. Quickly go back round the other side. Good grief. The front's a lot easier to work on because it is a V engine. It's not an L engine, but it is tilted over considerably. There's a fundamental difference in terms of the way the engines are oiled, but the front and rear block are oiled in exactly the same way. So it's a V engine. With an L engine, you'd have a completely different oiling setup. But it looks like an L engine because the front cylinder is so much more horizontal than the rear. It's just easier to work on. Well, it is for me. Yeah, so ignoring that, I'm assuming that's just what's poured in there as I've taken the head off. But it's not running away, so it's a fair bet that we've got really good tight seal on the rings anyway. Particularly on this one, the number 2. Which was the one with the really low compression. So I might just leave that for a minute, see if it drains away. Again, difficult to tell because most of the gaskets come away with the head. You've got bits of gasket left over there. Let's go and look at the head. You can't really sort of tell what bits are missing or already pre-destroyed. This is correspondingly number 2. I mean, it don't look good, does it? So let's get it on its head. But it looks so torn up, and this was the one with very low compression, so I'd say, yeah, I was hoping to see some good clean witness marks, but with that level of damage it's difficult because some of that would have been done just pulling it apart just then, but looks pretty done for, doesn't it? Can't even see there's any. Oh no, I mean you got layers of gasket there, but it looks like it's all missing there, and that'll be transferring fluids between the ports. This is the corresponding patch there. No gasket, so yeah, we've got gasket missing. I was saying that's only going from water jacket to water jacket there, isn't it? So yeah, virtually nothing there. Nothing there. So easily going to get coolant across into the cylinder anyway. But yeah, that is fresh, as in just now. That wasn't there when before I took the head off. Right, I'm just going to put these pistons down to the bottom, and I'm going to rotate the engine clockwise. It doesn't matter, there are no heads, there are no valves, there's nothing to interfere with anything. You can turn it any which way you fancy. And they both look really good. Yeah, so a fending piston, okay, so water jacket, water coming across the gasket and getting into the cylinders. We know it is because it's blowing out white smoke and we can see the state of the gasket. So if you go to the sort of the inside, so this is number 2, very low compression. If you go to the inside, there's practically no gasket there. That pretty much is bare aluminium, a little bit of remnants of gasket left. And obviously that's the cam chain tunnel side, so that's where coolant can come across from here down into the crankcase. So if there was no gasket there at all, wouldn't be a problem necessarily if the entire intact gasket was on the corresponding head. Gasket's there, but you can see lots of it's missing. There's so many places for that fluid to leach across, sort of anywhere, around here, all the way along, around here, anywhere else it'd be coming out, wouldn't it? And of course on the rear too. We could have a bad gasket on the front giving us poor compression, we could have a bad gasket on the rear giving us water ingress. When you look at that, there's virtually nothing left there. So what's that? That's cylinder number 3. There's nothing left there. In the next video then, I'm going to remove these cables. This is just your 3-phase wiring from the stator, and that little single wire coming from there, I believe, is the neutral switch underneath that cover. This is the transmission area after all. Final drive cover needs to come off, the alternator, the starter clutch, the clutch itself, and all the external shift mechanisms. Well, that brings me to the end of this video, and when I start removing all of the externals in the next one, I will explain what the functions of all the individual components are, what's doing the driving, what's being driven and why. Till then, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and I will see you next time.